Yo, what's poppin' in guys? It's your boy Offline Nuzlocke and welcome to the video where I beat Pokémon Violet but only using Fairy-type Pokémon for a Nuzlocke. Do you guys think it's possible? Let me know down in the comments below. Alright, so we start off our journey like any other. We're reading a book about Pokémon, the mom says we have to go to school, we feed our food to a random dragon, and start our Nuzlocke journey. I first catch Azurill and name it Blue. Then it's turn for Fiddle the Fido to get into the bomb. And lastly, I catch Grace the Ralts when I spot a balloon. Oh, it was just Seltzer, the Igglybuff. Alright. Soon, I sec Seltzer to an unfair Nimona fight. And rip. There goes Seltzer. Bye-bye. Up next, I wake up in my dorm, listen to everyone asking for my help, and decided to skip school. Kids, please don't try this at home. After the loss with Seltzer, I decided to recruit Bonk the Tinkatic to the squad. By the time I caught the new member, Blue evolved from an Azurill to a Meryl. What an upgrade. After this big evolution, and some football, soccer, rugby thingy, I decided to take on Katie, aka the Sugar Bug. She specializes in the bug-type Pokemon, and she led off with a Nimble, which allowed Blue to set up a rollout sweep. Blue took matter in its own hands and decided to take out Nimble, Tarantula, and her ace Teddiursa with her rollout. And this is how I got my first gym badge. Up next, I decided to see what Arwen was talking about, and that led me to a big, fierce-looking crab, which was bonked by Bonk's hammer. Yikes. After the first phase, Blue evolved into a fierce Azumarill. Now we can really get the party started. In the second phase of the cloth battle, Bonk did some bonking and it was the same result for the poor crab. Since I was going to battle the second gym leader soon, I decided to grind on some Terror Raid battles, and this is when another tragedy struck. Fiddle the Fido was crit by a Shellos using Clear Smog after getting an Omni boost from an Ancient Palm. I really can't catch a break in this game.
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine, but you just can't get into it.
After losing the weapon of ultimate destruction for the next gym, I decided to give Pounce to Bonk and Bounce to Blue. With the new coverage, I dropped my frames for the Sunfloras and decided to challenge Brassius with the Pixies. Bonk used Pounce to take out the Petalil and the Smoliv, and up was the biggest challenge for the team. Sudowoodo terastallizes into a grass type, and I decided to put that normal hat on Bloom and bounce our way to victory. See what I did there? Please, just subscribe. After the badge, I decided to capture Jiro the Impidimp before we take on a giant bird. Soon after, Race the Ralts evolved into Curlia. And while I was grinding for some experience candies, I stumbled across a Ground Terror Patina, which I made sure to add to the roster. Following that, Bonk evolved into a Tinkatuff, and this randomly happened. I guess a shiny Lechonk is a fairy, yeah? Alright, now that's out of the way. While looking for a mean bird, I tripped on a flower, so I decided to add it to the team as well. Upon dodging some rocks, I was attacked by a big stork. Not to worry, player of Oko the Stork, and it was the same the second time around. So yeah, I guess the stork was just big and not scary at all. Up next, I went to Mandali and caught Sylvie the Eevee so it can be evolved into a Sylveon. Right then, I also saw a Dedenne, so I decided to catch it and name it Bonnie. After a few picnics and some grinding, Eevee evolved into a Sylveon, and Curlia evolved into a Gardevoir. It's now time to take on Iono after making her even more famous. I lead off with my Gardevoir and decided to one-shot her water with Dazzling Gleam. Then she sent out her Bellybolt, which also went down with a couple of Dazzling Gleams. Up next was her Luxio, and it went down with a couple of Draining Kits from Sylveon. Last but not the least, she sent out her Miss Magius, which Sylvie took out with a quick attack. Up next, it's time to take on Kofu after learning how to auction in a market. Now for the gym battle, Tofu leads off with his Waluza, which is taken out by a few parabolic charges from Dedenne. Up next is his Wugtrio, which shares the same fate as the Waluza. Lastly, his Crabominable comes out, which crits my Gardevoir with a Crabhammer and it takes it out. Man, what a sad day. After that devastating loss, Blue comes out and cleans it up with Trailblaze. I should have been more safer with this play. Soon after, I was able to bounce back and add Mimi the Mimikyu to the squad. After that, Impidimp evolved into a Morgrim, and the game crashed. Thanks Nintendo. I know you're a small indie company, it's alright. Frustrated by that crash, Bonk slammed its hammer into that game cartridge and evolved into a Tinkaton. Going back to the grinding, Flabébé evolved into a Floette, and Hatina evolved into a Hatchrim. Now, time to challenge Larry with his secret onigiri recipe. I lead off with Mimi as he leads a Komala. I set up Hone Claws and take it out with a Drain Punch. Up next is his Dudunsparce, which meets the same demise as the Komala. His last attempt is to break my disguise with his Staraptor, but Mimikyu takes it out with a Drain Punch and sweeps the floor clean. Oh boy, what a gym battle that was. Next up, Juro evolved into a Grimmsnarl and Hatterene evolved into a Hatterene. Finally, I decided to catch Klefki, which is probably the last Pokemon I'll catch for now. Next up, I spit some beats and now we are ready to take on Rhyme, the Ghost-type gym leader. Ball Surrender from Grimmsnarl takes Bennett out, while Flash Cannon from Klefki breaks Mimikyu's disguise. Next up, Flash Cannon takes out Mimikyu, while Fall Surrender takes out Houndstone. Last but not the least is her Ace Toxtricity, and Klefki takes it out with a couple of foul plays. Now, it's time to take on Tulip at the Alfornada gym. After some emotional spectrum exercise sessions. Man, what is this garbage? Just let me take on the gym leader. Now that is done, we can finally battle Tulip. She first sends out her Farigiraf, which gets OHKO'd by Grimmsnarl's Fall Surrender. Next up is her Gardevoir, which is taken out by a couple of Flash Cannons from Klefki. She sends out Espethra next, which goes down to a Fall Surrender from Juro. Last is her Ace Florges, which Tinkaton takes out with a couple of Skittersnacks. With the winning streak of 3 gyms, we head up to Glacedo Gym to break the ice with Grusha. He leads off with his Frostmoth that Bonk decimates with her hammer. Next comes out his Bertic that gets destroyed with a Drain Punch and a Shadow Sneak from Mimikyu. Up next is his Cetitan, which falls to a couple of Flash Cannons from Klefki. Last but not the least is his Altaria, which is bonked by a Gigaton Hammer and a Play Rough. This concludes our Gym Badge adventures. Now it's time for the Elite Four. After the intense interview, we face off with Rika. She starts with her Whiscash as I lead my Azumarill. One Trailblaze is enough to take out her Whiscash. Up next is her Donphan, which goes down to a Liquidation. Dugtrio comes out next and annoys me with the Sandstorm dodges, but eventually goes down to a Liquidation. Camerupt is up next, and it meets the same fate as the first two. Lastly is her Clodsire, which fails to Toxic Protect Stall and faints to a few Giga Drains from Hatterene. Up next is my biggest challenge yet. Yep, it's this kid Poppy, who uses all Steel-type Pokemon. She leads with a Kaburaja, which goes down to a couple of Bulldoze after setting up Stealth Rocks. Then she sends out her Magnezone, which also goes down to a Bulldoze. Up next is her Bronzong, which falls to a single Fall Surrender. And now it's time for the Metal Bird, and it falls to a few Parabolic Charges because I had to save it from the wrath of the Tinkaton. Last is her Tinkaton, which falls to a Bulldoze from Blue after dealing massive damage with that Gigaton Hammer. Now, it's time for our homeboy Mr. Larry. Apparently he has to use flying types for this? I don't know, but he starts off with a Tropius and I lead Blue, which takes out Tropius with a single Ice Spin. Pretty basic stuff. Staraptor decides to come out next, and it falls to a parabolic charge from Dedenne. Next up is his Altaria, which also falls to an Ice Spinner like Tropius. Yeah, I saw that one coming. Up next is the Dancing Bird, which goes down to a couple of Rock Slides from Bonk. Last up is his Flamingo, which falls to a couple of parabolic charges. And now, it's time for the last Elite Four member, Hassel. He starts off with a Noivern, which goes down to an Ice Spinner. Next comes his Dragology, which falls to a Gigatron Hammer, following a Play Rough. Haxorus is up next, which falls to a Brick Break after a Play Rough. Flapple decides to avenge the Fallen, and falls to an Ice Spinner itself. Lastly, it's time for Excalibur, and it falls to a couple of Draining Kisses from Klefki. Finally, it's time for the champion herself, Geeta, aka the mysterious lady that might be behind the terrestrialization phenomenon. What do you guys think? Is she the one behind this? Let me know down in the comments below. She leads her Lady Gaga bird as I drop it with a false surrender from Jiro. Next is her Go-Go that falls to a Skitter Smack following a Gigaton Hammer from Bonk. Avalok comes out next, but drops to a Flash Cannon from Klefki. Waluza follows and goes down to a Sucker Punch from Jiro. Up next is her King Gambit, which falls to a Superpower from Blue. Last but not the least is her Glamora, which falls to a Gigaton Hammer from Bonk. And this is how a couple of Pixies defeated Pokémon Violet. Hope you guys have enjoyed this. If you did, then make sure you guys hit the like button and subscribe to the channel if you're new. Getting to 1K means a lot to me, and that's all I have this time. Catch you in the next one. Peace out, Offline Squad.